Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
Attention all campers.
The All-American Spook Show welcomes you to enroll in Camp Spook Show this summer. We have activities for all ages, including archery, canoeing, swimming, and
Running for your lives.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the All-American Spook Show podcast. I'm Josh and I'm joined here with Donny,
Hey.
Will,
Hey.
and the Professor Smoke.
What's up?
And today we're celebrating Independence Day with something a little different. This was Donny's choice. It was his turn in the rotation, and he decided to choose Never Hike Alone from 2017. Now, it's unique because this is the first time on the show that we've talked about a fan film. This wasn't like a studio production, released in theaters, for-profit kind of thing. It's basically just a passion project, right? Like, no one really made any money off of it. It's a non-sanctioned Friday the 13th movie. I dare say it's probably easily the shortest movie we've ever talked about, right? I don't think we've talked about anything that was less than 54 minutes long, right?
Well, there was plenty of things that should have been that right about that. It should not have been as long as they were.
Yeah.
But yeah, this would be the shortest.
If I remember correctly, I believe our longest episode we ever did was the Monster Squad episode, I think. I don't have all the TRTs, the total run times in front of me. If it wasn't the longest, it was definitely one of, it's number 2 or 3. It seems like we went pretty long on that Jaws episode or whatever, but the point is that I make that point is because this movie is less than half of the episode where we just talked about Monster Squad. So I might even, it may not even be a stretch that by the time we're done talking about this, we may talk about it a little longer than the movie itself. So, but yeah, it's unique in that way. But we'll get into it in just a second, what our thoughts of it and everything. If this is the first time you've listened to us, we appreciate it. We are a spoiler-filled podcast. Just going to put that out on Front Street. So we are going, if you haven't seen it, go ahead and pause this. Go over to YouTube. Type in Never Hike Alone. It should be pretty easy to find. Like I said, it's only 54 minutes long. Give it a watch and then come back, and listen to us talk about the background information and our thoughts and everything. So we also have a vast library of 114 other episodes that we recommend you should go back and listen to. So all that stuff's there. And we do a number of different things now. Like over the last few months, we've added a couple little sub-series. So basically the thing that we do now is every 2 weeks we do a horror review. This is one of those. And then in between we have other sub-series that we do, such as Spookshow Spotlights, which we just did last week. That kind of ties into this and doesn't, where we talked about Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller. That's the writer, director, producer combo of the original Friday the 13th film. And we talked about the whole legal drama where they were suing each other over the copyrights and the rights to Jason and the Friday the 13th series and everything. So if you want to listen to a little bit of a deep dive on that, Smoke and I did that last week. So go back in the archives and check that out. But every other week we do those. We do Cannon Fodder, which is we pick by various means, we'll pick a random canon film and we'll talk about those. And I'm blanking on what's the other series that we do? Oh, Cult Corner. I can't believe I forgot it. That one is where we basically just, once again, by various means, choose a popular cult movie. And the whole, or one of the caveats there is that it can't be a horror movie. So we just pick popular comedies, action movies, whatever, other genre cult movies, and we talk about those. And then, of course, over on Patreon.com, one of our big sales over there is we have Crapsterpiece Theater. Every month, we run a poll on our socials, Twitter, Facebook, all that. And you guys choose what we watch over on Crapsterpiece Theater that's exclusive to Patreon, patreon.com/AASpookshow. So, in the month of June, our latest one was Ernest Goes to Camp. As of the recording of this, we haven't figured out exactly what the Crapster Piece Theater number 5. There's been 4 other turds already. Number 5 is going to be for the month of July. So, kick around our socials and all that, and that's where we'll make the announcement of what's going to be for the month of July. But it will be Camp Spook Show related. I think that's going to be the last Camp Spook Show related Crapster Piece Theater episode that we do. And by the way, I didn't mention off the front, we are continuing Camp Spook Show, the whole theme of the summer, all the way up into the month of August. I believe it's the August 8th episode, so about another month or so from now. Our whole theme of the summer is Camp Spook Show, where all the movies that we talk about, whether it's cult, crap, horror, everything that we do, they're all summer camp related. So that's why Ernest Goes to Camp was last month's Crapster Piece, and that's why once again we're talking today about Never Hike Alone. So it's part of the Friday the 13th franchise, but not really. It's a completely unsolicited, I guess, sequel that's just some people decided to get together and make. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But I thought a little bit of the usual information before we get into the background and everything. If you want to contact us, you can do so at allamericanspookshow@gmail.com. Like I said, all of our socials. Over on our YouTube channel, every Wednesday night live, we do Deadline Horror News, 9 p.m. Wednesday nights, where we talk about the latest horror headlines, so you want to check that out. We also have a TeePublic page where you can go get logoed merchandise and other cool designs that we have there, so we encourage you to do that. So without any further build-up, I'll go ahead and toss to the trailer for Never Hike Alone.
Hey guys, it's day 12, and a beautiful one at that. So today's mission, find the lake. This terrain's looking a little treacherous, but I'm just have to make my way. Nothing's stopping me. Alright, I'll check in with you guys later. Kyle, out.
All right, so there's the trailer for Never Hike Alone. So I'll note now too. You may or may not have heard some noise in the background. Smoke is on location. You're down in the Columbia area or something, right? Smoke.
Yeah. So might hear a little bit of background noise. Hopefully not.
Yeah. I mean, you may or may not hear anything, but it's there because he's on the road. And Donny, you're over doing some like dog setting or something, right? So
Yes,
you've got dogs in the background. So.
Yeah.
So it's not our usual setup. So if you hear some weird noises in the background, that's what it is. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
one of the episodes that we shot, or that we not shot, that we recorded was the burning. When we did that, I was also on location, but that would have been more fitting had I been where I was when we were recording this one, because that was this is called Never Hike Alone, and I was basically hiking, like say.
Hiking in the woods. Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, we didn't address that last episode, but you are safe, because at the end of that episode, we were wondering whether you were safe or not. So,
I was asking y'all if y'all remember this tree or not.
Yeah. So yeah, he made it out. I mean, we didn't address that last week, but Smoke's safe and sound. We're all good, and we're all here. So yeah, Never Hike Alone. Donnie, I'll throw it to you. Is this the first time you've seen this?
Yes, this was the first time I watched it, but similar to Well, I know Willie just kind of chose the, you might be the killer based on the trailer. I actually chose this based on the trailer as well. I was like, this looks interesting. And, given the, and at the time, I didn't know we were doing a Spookshow spotlight on Sean S. Cunningham and Victor Miller. I didn't know it. I mean, I had already picked this by the time that was decided. It just happened to be that. But,
serendipity.
Well,
it works perfectly. And, we the only one we've ever done here on the podcast is the first Friday the 13th, and I'm sure eventually, very soon, sooner or later, we'll get around to the other Friday the 13th. We've been dipping our toes in and out of the we did pretty much all, well, not pretty much, we did all of the Conjuring universe movies. We've done that entire series up to current, and we have watched the first 3 Hellraiser movies. Those have been the only big franchise. The only big series that we've really talked about.
So we can pretty much stop after the first 3 Hellraiser movies, right?
We're probably going to wish we did. I'm sure. The further down the road we get. So yeah. Anyway, so this is kind of a way to get back into it by proxy, kind of, right? A little bit. Will, is this the first time you've seen it?
Yeah, first time I've seen it. First time I've ever heard of it.
I had heard of it, but I hadn't watched it. It seems like I might have started watching it one day, and it's like, oh, there it is. It's on YouTube. I might have watched like the first 5 minutes or something, and I'll get to that later, and just never went back to it.
No, this is the first time I'd watched it. I'd heard about it, and I remember when it first came out. I said I got to watch that. I never got around to watching it. Now I didn't realize that when we were doing this, and I was looking it up, that was back in 2017.
Yeah.
So it's been 5 years since this movie came out, and it doesn't feel like I remember when they announced that they were making it, or that it was a thing. And I never got to it until now.
Yeah, the movie was released October 13th, 2017, so I'm going to assume that was probably on a Friday, I would imagine. Maybe not, but either way, it was on October 13th, 2017.
It was. I looked that up. I found out some information on that. It was released, but that was not Friday the 13th. Because they were talking about Jason's birthday. And then his birthday, though, however, would have fallen in, in 1946, the day they said it was in the movie, would have actually been a Thursday, I believe, the 13th. if literally that year, 1946, when he was supposedly born on Friday the 13th, it was a Thursday the 13th.
This movie was directed by Vincente DeSanti, and he also was one of the writers of the screenplay along with Nathan McLeod. Vincente DeSanti, he was a producer on this, but he also directed. There was another one of these. Actually, there's two more. One hasn't come out yet, but there was another one that came out in 2020 that he did called Never Hike in the Snow. Was 3 months prior to the events of the one that we just watched. So that is, I guess it's kind of a sequel prequel to the one that he made. And then there's another one that is apparently in pre-production that I think is slated to come out at some point this year called Never Hike Alone 2, Never Hike Again. Of course, there is another one called Never Hike Alone, The Ghost Cut, a Friday the 13th fan film anthology, where there are some... or I guess they took this one, Never Hike in the Snow, and then another one called Disappear. I guess it's segments of that. So I'm not sure exactly that one. That's an hour and 22 minutes. So I don't know exactly what they did there. Maybe they just kind of chopped them up and made it like an anthology type of thing with some other fan film created type stuff. But yeah, that's basically what he will be known for. I mean, he was a producer on Pathosis, another one called 13 Fanboy. So it really looks like it's like fan film type stuff that it looks like this guy's worked on. Of course, they have to give credit to Sean S. Cunningham and Victor Miller because these are the characters, and Ron Kurz. I think that's because of the tie-in with Tommy Jarvis. But it stars Drew Leidy as Kyle MacLeod. He has 12 acting credits over on IMDb. Best known for The Return, Freya, and Submission. I think he does. Basically, he's kind of a one-man show, really, up to a point. So I think the dude does a pretty good job, throughout the film. Vincente DeSanti plays Jason Voorhees himself in this movie. Katie Schwartz and Robert Dubois are Denny and Axel, the two ambulance drivers towards the end. And then the third one, of course, is Tom Matthews as reprising his role as Tommy Jarvis. Now, you know, Donnie, I'm sure we'll get to the Crypt connections later, but he does have another connection to the Spook Show in that he was Freddy in Return of the Living Dead. Which I don't remember right off the top of my head what episode that was. That was a while. Okay, that was episode 5, so that was a long time ago when we did that. But yeah. He was in that. But of course, he would best be known for playing Tommy Jarvis in Friday the 13th Part 6, right, Smoke?
Yep. First time we've seen Tommy back since that movie. Part 6 was the last time he was in that character was in a Friday the 13th movie.
But he's been in a lot of other fan favorite movies like Blood Match, Return of the Living Dead Part 2, he's in that. He's got 46 acting credits, so he's not been super busy over the years, but a lot of the things that he has been, in are huge for horror fans and sci-fi fans and stuff like that. So he's done a lot of things that fans of the Spook Show would probably be well versed with a lot of his work. But this movie was, like I said, when it was released, it's not rated because it is a fan film, and the total runtime is only 54 minutes. Over on IMDb, it's got a rating of 6.8 out of 10 stars, and that's over 23,000 ratings. But that's about it as far as the usual aggregates, because I couldn't find anything else. I don't even think they had anything for it over on Rotten Tomatoes. Was there anything else you guys wanted to add before we kind of do the usual roundtable discussion?
Yeah, the one thing I did find that it cost less than $20,000 to make.
That being said, man, I think considering that, they did a fucking awesome job on it.
Oh, certainly. It's a shame they didn't make any, they couldn't make any money off of this.
Yeah.
It was.
It wasn't sanctioned, so to
really
speak.
Well done.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and we'll get into our star ratings and our overall thoughts of it, after we have the little discussion about it. But yeah, I think it looks good. It doesn't look like a movie that was made for $20,000. That's for damn sure.
You think about fan-made films, a lot of times you don't think of production values. This movie for $20,000, it had decent production values. I mean, those opening shots of I guess that was shot with a drone.
I would imagine, yeah.
I'd assume, but I mean, shots that you can make with a drone camera these days look like the old school shots of that they used to have a helicopter for, basically.
Yeah. Jimmy Jib or something.
Just to steady everything too.
Kind of reminiscent a little bit of like some of the shots from The Shining, a little bit, with the forest.
Yeah, I was thinking that exact same thing when they're going up to the Overlook Hotel in the beginning.
Yeah, and like you pointed out, they did that for $20,000 and probably a drone. I would imagine, things like this are like, like I said earlier, passion projects. So, people probably start chipping in, like, oh, well, I'll do this. I can do this. I can do this for free, that kind of thing. So, it wouldn't cost as much as it normally would to make something like this when they're basically doing it for fun, as opposed to, a full studio production kind of thing. So it becomes more of a labor of love, and everybody's willing to work for cheap or free. So that cuts down on your budget right there. All right, so the usual thing that we do is we go over to IMDb, and I'll read some plot summaries that people put up. You've got the generic one that I guess is just, what IMDb put up. It's a hiker's survival skills are put to the test when he stumbles upon the remains of an old abandoned camp and discovers its long dark secrets. This one was posted by Timo Bentham. What a name. It reads, a hiker runs through the woods and here we go with the IMDb grammar again. A hiker runs through the woods
English as a second language.
Yeah. And run into I'm just going to read it the way it's put, and then you can just decipher it yourself. A hiker runs through the woods and run into the remains of recreational Camp Crystal Lake. The camp, as we all known, as the home for the Friday the 13th episodes throughout the years. Apparently, Jason still resides there, as the hiker soon discovers. After that, it's Jason at its best again, as he joins up with his favorite weapon, the machete. Will the hiker survive or not? That's the question. So far, only one ever did, not even Freddy Krueger. God, good Lord. That is bad. Yeah, thanks to Timo Bentham for that gold nugget there. So yeah, well, who wants to get started on this one? Never Hiking Alone. Donnie, this was your choice, so I guess you can kickstart us here.
Kind of like I alluded to earlier, like I know that this was a fan film, but it doesn't really look like a fan film.
No.
It doesn't
No.
look like it was, we talked about the budget. It doesn't really look like, they were, fighting for scraps or anything. It looks really well done, and they did a really good job. Even if you consider, $20,000 is not a lot of money if you're you're looking to make a movie.
No, that's nothing at all, really.
That's paltry.
Yeah.
But
like I said, that's people working for free, I bet.
oh yeah, and it is.
Yeah.
It's just, it looks great, kind of like GoPro and modernized, I guess, for vloggers or just kind of a different, kind of bringing into. Yeah, it was 5 years ago, but still, it's still kind of current technology, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I think it's definitely timely with the way that everybody is kind of drifting over to watching content providers on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Being it felt natural. Like if you watch YouTube bloggers talk about whatever they're doing. It felt very natural as far as all those go. I thought it was really well put together.
I thought at first there for a little bit that we were going to kind of go the found footage way, and it does have a little bit of that feel to it because what the guy is, he's a vlogger or whatever. But it's not a found footage movie, so I was happy to see that they didn't completely go that direction.
Yep.
They kind of pulled away from doing a complete Blair Witch.
Yeah.
And like even during some of that, there were some like set shots over the side.
Yeah. I'm perfectly fine with that. And I don't have a huge beef with found footage movies. I just think they're a little played out. So I was like, oh, okay, well, there's your budget. They're just going to shoot it on Zoom, or they're just going to make it clear that, well, we're shooting this shit with GoPro, so we're just going to go with it, But no, they didn't lean too much into that. So, I thought that was good.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, they didn't. I guess the reason I keep bringing Blair Witch and even Cloverfield, it didn't focus too much on the shake.
Yeah,
those movies were over the top with the shake, where it was to the point difficult to watch.
It's only there because it would make sense for it to be there. In this movie, like, when Jason, fucking picks him up or threw him out of the window and stuff like that, and he's scrambling for the camera. Like, these are all things that make sense. It's not just running around and crying like Blair Witch. To compare. The only time it felt kind of like a fan film, honestly, was when the first two ambulance drivers show up, like towards the end, because their acting wasn't quite up to the main guy, Drew Lady. It didn't feel like, I thought that dude did a really good job. I could see him in other shows and movies and stuff, but they were kind of, I don't know.
And
luckily, it was brief.
At least for me with that, you didn't notice how good he was. He felt natural in what he was doing until they show up. And then once they show up, and I hate to crap on somebody doing a fan film, but once they show up, it really drew your attention to what this guy had been doing before all that.
Yeah. It was better when he, like I said, he was basically a one-man show because whoever's Jason, let's face it, he there's not much acting going on. He just has to act like a fucking maniac and has to stalk around and kill people, right? Like, there's not much acting there. So he's basically acting by himself until they show up, towards the end. And not to knock on Tom Matthews as Tommy Jarvis, but that was a little. It was cool just having him there and knowing the natural ties and everything, right, to the actual movies. But this wasn't necessarily, the greatest thing, the greatest acting job in the world either. But it was fine.
I guess my biggest question with this movie is the whole ending. What's real? What's not?
Well, I think one of the most awesome scenes in the movie is not real, and that's when Jason grabs a hold of his head and smashes it like a,
like watermelon.
He pulled a Gallagher on him with his hands and smashed his fucking head. But he crushes it, and that was one of the cooler scenes of the movie. But it didn't happen. That was clearly, obviously, a dream sequence, right? Because he's out of it. And then there's the other scene where he's strapped
into the gurney,
and then all of a sudden he like looks up and Jason's like, it's just like the gurney out in the middle of the forest and Jason's standing at his feet, and then comes down with the knife. Right, then he wakes up again. So there's 2 dream sequences, but I think everything else happened.
But I guess my question is, how did the ambulance get there? How did anybody find him?
I mean, yeah, if there was some weird plot thing that they shot and that explained that, and then they cut it out, why? It's a fucking fan film. Why would you do that?
Yeah, but then again, you also think about YouTube as far as now. Granted, I don't know the requirements for YouTube and ads and all of that. I don't know if you have a video that's over an hour, maybe you have to have a certain number of ads on it. Or maybe I don't know.
Maybe I don't think so.
No idea.
But as far as in the movie is concerned, I thought you were going to say maybe he was live streaming. I didn't read it. I didn't see it like he was live streaming anything, right? Like it seemed to me like he's just shooting this stuff and then like he's going to go take it home and put it together. All his vlog footage of hiking, and everything that he's doing there.
I don't think he was live streaming.
Because I thought you were going to go down the path of like, well, he's live streaming, so maybe somebody saw this and. Then they called the cops or some shit.
On the filmmaker side, as far as maybe there's a reason why they cut out, 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, it is in a rural area that he's in. Right, he's in an area where there is no trespassing. It's a camp that's clearly been shut down and quote unquote fenced off. Don't want people messing around over there. Something happens to him, and then all of a sudden, an ambulance with 3 in the middle of nowhere. With 3 ambulance, like a driver and 2 medics just randomly show up and save him. It is a little too convenient.
No paved road. It's just all dirt road.
Yeah.
We're also kind of talking about the end at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're at the round table discussion here. Let's face it. With this movie, there's not a lot. There are certain things to talk about, but it's not a long movie. And most of it's just him running around. I mean, like what? You're at least 20 to 25 minutes in before really anything happens of true note. It's mostly just this guy Kyle hiking and shooting himself out in the woods, and then talking about he comes across Camp Crystal Lake and talks about how like, oh, this shit happened here years ago, and here I am.
Yeah. He seems to know about.
Yet
doesn't hold any.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Like he's well aware of this situation and what this place is and what happened there and everything. But fuck it, I'm gonna poke around here anyways. But that's that's the first 30 minutes or at least 25 minutes of the movie right there. So there's really not much to discuss there,
And even when all that stuff is going on, he'll be like looking down at his phone or his bag or something. You'll see Jason in the foreground of the shot. It's like, oh, something's about to happen. And then he'll look up. Jason's not there.
Yeah.
But then it'll show Jason, like 15 feet behind him, like looking through a tree. Why would he do that?
Yeah. Well, Jason's always had that magical teleportation power, too.
Yeah.
It's a joke, but not really a joke. It's, in those movies, that is kind of the way it is. Like, what the fuck? And then he's gone, magically. You definitely would have heard that,
Yeah,
whatever.
Fucking with him.
Yeah. That's always been the thing about Jason, too. It's like, it seems like he's fucking with him, but he's really fucking with him? Like, is he that smart? I don't know. And I think, there we get deep into the weeds of, what was the movie that we all liked about slashers?
Oh, Behind the Mask.
Yeah, Behind the Mask.
Yeah.
Now you're getting into that territory, He really had to work out for this.
Yeah. Do you know how hard it is to walk at a fast enough pace to keep up with somebody running?
Yeah.
Shit, he wasn't walking. He was stomping around like fucking T-Rex.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Like, not only is he stomping, but the sound effects. They got a hold of a sound effect library and just went to town on this one, man. Like, boom, boom. Like you said, it's like the Jurassic Park water scene.
Yeah. That's exactly what he sounded like.
Yeah. There was, like, even the exaggerated machete sword sound, like, anytime he'd pull it out, like, it sounded like, He-Man pulling out the power sword or some shit, like.
Now, I will say this, like when he's walking through the cabins and all that, there was like really cool callbacks.
Oh yeah,
to all that. Like you could definitely tell like they went through and like watched some scenes before putting this together. Like the one that really popped into my head first was the scene where Kevin Bacon bites it. You know, like, and they kind of focus on, hey, here's a mattress, blood all over here, over to the side. That was something I really like enjoyed with that movie.
Now, Smoke, you might know the timeline of things a little better than all of us. Where do you think this lands? Obviously, it's after 6, I guess, right? Because Tommy Jarvis.
It's refreshment time, and our refreshment stand is loaded with good things to eat. There's crispy, crunchy popcorn, and hot, delicious buttered popcorn. Lots of candy, and frosty, refreshing cold drinks. Why not treat yourself at the refreshment center now?
I'm just asking, is this in a world where, like 6 and then this kind of thing sometime later on, or what do you think?
Well, I don't know exactly where he's going with it, because other than the first movie where they mention Pamela Voorhees and actually have, here's another thing they did was have those little ribbons with the numbers on it, which were
like
the kill.
The crime scene tape kind of thing, where the murders would have happened, right?
Yeah, they corresponded to like where bodies were in the first movie. His mask, though, now this is a what do you call it? Like a meticulous kind of thing that not many people would probably notice or care too much about unless you're like hardcore Friday the 13th fan. But
unless you're like us.
Yeah. It didn't have any markings to indicate the movie that it came from, because the mask first appeared in part 3, and then it was the same mask in part 4. And it was a mask that had the red chevron.
Yep.
On the red chevron on the forehead, and then 2 little small red chevrons on the cheek of the mask. Those weren't even on this mask at all. They had none of that. It was just, it looked like the mask other than that, pretty much. And it had some wear and tear stuff, but it didn't have the axe mark in where it would have been from part 3 after he got chopped in the head at the end of part 3, and it showed up part 4. It had the axe chopping it in the mask. Of course, part 5 was Roy, right?
Yeah.
So that was a different mask. That was the blue mask. Well, it was a white mask with a blue chevron. Then you had part 6 where Tommy Jarvis, by Tom Matthews, shows up and he's going to make sure Jason's dead. He brings a hockey mask with him, conveniently enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you would if you're bringing someone back to life just to make sure they're dead.
Oh yeah. You make sure you have it. Get it. After he does come back to life, conveniently takes it, and boom, there you go. He's got his mask.
Yeah.
But no, this mask doesn't match any prior mask from any of the other movies, other than the basic design looks like it. And Tommy showing up from part 6, and his name is Tommy Jarvis. But also that's kind of weird, because he was so sketchy and paranoid about being near Crystal Lake anyway. He's just going there strictly to make sure Jason was dead in part 6. And then when he brings him back to life inadvertently, he tries to, he makes sure he stays there enough to kill, to make sure he's dead again by, putting the boulder around his neck and basically burying him in Crystal Lake itself. And then I guess he takes off at that point. But you would think that he either would be patrolling that area and making sure that, you'd think that he would have known about the events that happened in part 7, part 8,
Yeah.
So much of that. So
when Jason took Manhattan, it would have been news.
Yeah, yeah, you would definitely.
Yeah.
So you would think he would be either patrolling, that he would be there and maybe there's your explanation for why the ambulance is there. Maybe he doesn't have a job as a cop or security guard or anything else. He's an ambulance driver, but maybe he patrols the Crystal Lake area.
And that did kind of cross my mind. I was like, wait a minute, it's Tommy Jarvis, which is cool. It is cool to have Tommy Jarvis in the movie. Like, that's a really cool, touch, and I'm glad they could do that and everything. But I did think that, Will, earlier when you were talking about, well, how the hell did the ambulance get there? Maybe that's how. Maybe, because Tommy has this history, he just randomly patrols to see if anybody's out there or something, Maybe
it would either be that, or Tommy would be nowhere near that damn place.
Yeah, I tend to believe that just because common sense. But in this world that they have made here, we're trying to figure out why. So maybe that's it. Who knows?
The only thing I can think of, but other than that, I guess he's just kind of leaving. He's not trying to make it canon, fit into the Friday 13th.
No,
canon.
and you don't have to. I was just, kind of just for conversation's sake, really trying to fit where this might fit, And 2, obviously, because of Tommy Jarvis, it has to be after 6 or 7, right? And clearly, sometime well after that too, because Tommy is old. Tommy's way older, right? So
yeah, he's probably in his early 50s.
Yeah, I mean, like,
he looked
yeah.
early to mid.
So you would have to think this is like, 20, 25 years later after whatever happened in 6 and 7 or whatever. You would think,
Yeah.
if they're trying to place it.
If they were going by the actual time this movie came out, let's say, and Jason was born in 1946, this movie came out in 2017. How old would Jason be? I'm not that great with math either. Off the top of my head.
Like 70, something like that. So early 70s?
Early 70s.
Something like that. It sounds about right.
Yeah. But also, speaking of Jason, when he gets his mask knocked off and you see his face, it's almost like you can't determine what he is. You can't determine if he's pre-zombie Jason or post-zombie Jason. Yeah. I mean, he definitely doesn't look as zombie-fied as he did in part 6, 7, or 8.
Mm-hmm.
He that like decayed and stuff in the face, like when he was buried, and and then like we talked about, Tommy dug him up to make sure he's dead, and of course he's half decayed at that point. And from the rest of the movies on, he didn't look that decayed in this. He looked like he could have been in part 3 or 4, where he's still alive.
Yeah, he looks a little. I mean, obviously he's deformed, but I mean, you really can't see how far in decayed status he is.
No. But I will say to that, I think that's one of the good things of the job that they did there. I think it's a pretty, it's a fine enough makeup job, right, on the whole face, his face and everything. But I think the best part about it is they didn't stay on it too long. They stay with it long enough for you to see it like, oh shit, his face is all fucked up. Then they get over it, or they get off of it and he puts his mask on, So just because you didn't have to stare at it too long, I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, but as far as where it fits, I don't know. It's up to it's up to interpretation, I guess. You got to figure Tommy Jarvis from part 6 is in there, so it would have to be after part 6, I guess. Then.
Yeah, and there might be some interview with Vincente DeSanti somewhere out there, something where he says, well, I think it's kind of around this time period, maybe, or something. Or I tend to believe because it is a fan film, maybe don't dwell on it too long and just kind of enjoy it for what it is. I think it's just like, here's an excuse to have a cool little Jason story at Camp Crystal Lake. You get to see him fuck a couple people up. The end. That's at this point, that's really all we need out of anything Jason related, right?
Yeah, and with one guy in the woods, you kind of needed more to have, a little bit of. You needed more participation to have, any sort of kill count. But,
Yeah, but I do think this is the way you pull it off without having a quote-unquote short film, kind of, even though it's almost feature length. I don't know what the dividing line is between short film and feature length. But I think with a movie like this, you don't need a big cast. You need it to be like 1 or 2 people because you don't have a lot of time for character development and all that kind of shit. You just need to kind of, all right, here's what the guy is, get to know him a little bit, and now let's get to it. You don't want to spend too much time on that because you don't have that time.
And they also had the perk of, like not having to sit around and do 2 shots, reactions, all that.
That being said, though, I think to me the best scene for me, well, at least one of the best scenes was that head crushing scene, which was a dream, as it turns out. I think another really good one was when basically Jason stabs Kyle with the machete, like he basically runs him through, right? But then Kyle also caught up Jason right in the throat with the axe. And you don't realize that until you see blood coming out of Jason's mask, like pouring out of the holes of the bottom of the mask, and then they both fall down at the same time. I thought that was a pretty well done scene.
If we're picking favorite scenes, mine would be when Kyle hit Jason with a chair, and then he was countered by Jason choke slamming him through the table. It was like, somebody stop the damn match.
You just see Jim Ross slide in. Good Lord Almighty!
That killed it.
There's another scene in there where Jason looked like he was doing some judo. Like he blocked the. I think he had a weapon of some kind. Kyle did, I guess, or something. And he was going in at him, and then it might have been the knife. When he had the knife, he was going in at him, and then Jason blocked it with his wrist, and like tossed him.
Yeah.
Just. Style.
Yeah, I do like that right after that, though, whenever he caught Jason in the throat with that axe and then he fell down. But Kyle manages to get away, and as he's getting away, he looks back and Jason takes the axe out of his throat, or the side of his neck, and then he's looking at him, he's like, oh, fuck this, and then runs away.
And then he snaps his fingers and says, "You should aim for the head."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wait, I'm thinking about a different movie.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Well, they never finished the job anyway. So because you can't, he's an immortal killing machine. The end.
A couple scenes in here where like Kyle stole Jason's maneuver, like when he was laying on the ground in that scene, one scene or whatever, and Jason turned around to get the machete or whatever, and then he turned around and then Kyle wasn't there. He was gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
What other scene? I can't remember what it was where it's kind of like that sort of. He's taking Jason's maneuvers.
Going back to that one scene where Jason like kind of I guess pushes him / throws him out of that second story door. What was the explanation of why that door was there? Anyways, I forget. Like he said something. This was why
they said it was something for moving furniture up into the.
Yeah, it was a door to nowhere. But whatever he does, whether he kicked him or threw him something, and then the dude falls out of the window or the door. I'm sorry. But then like he's scrambling on the ground just to grab his camera. Like what the fuck? Dude, somebody just chunked your ass out a second story door. Fuck that camera. You need to run for your life.
You see Jason, well, I mean, you don't really see him jump out, but you basically just see him land. But it doesn't seem like he bends his knees at all. He just bam.
Well, you see, Jason actually said something right there. They just cut it out.
Yeah.
Parkour.
Yeah. He only said parkour. Shit. Jason's not supposed to talk. Cut. Yeah, there was. I really did like. I liked it overall, and the ending. So I guess there really is no conclusion on what we think of the ending there. I mean, what did you guys think of? Basically, like you got a couple dream sequences, and then Tommy is driving the ambulance, and Kyle is strapped to a gurney in the back, and I think Tommy says something like, "I'll get us out of here." Whatever he says, he delivers some line.
Remember me, asshole.
Yeah, and then takes off. We're getting out of here, kid. Whatever the fuck he said, and then took off down the road. And basically, it ends with Jason standing there staring at him drive away. Or no, he's stalking after him. Yeah, as Jason chases, he's just walking. Yeah, he's stomping away. He's just as a drone shot. You see the ambulance pulling off, and he's stalking out. So, what did you? I mean, I guess for a movie like this is as appropriate as an ending as you'll get, anyways, right? For a fan film, so. That leaves it open for, we can keep doing this all day.
I mean, for me, I really wish they would have stuck with that first dream sequence where he crushes the kid's head. And I mean, I know it's bleak, but
but you can.
Chasing,
it's a fan film. You can do bleak if you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have a rosy ending. Yeah, that would have been.
The name of the movie is Don't Never Hike Alone.
Yeah, that'll teach you kids.
Bring somebody else out there to get murdered with you.
Yeah, because obviously Never Hike Alone. The dude that delivers the line is I think Axel, right? The ambulance guy.
Yeah.
This is why you don't hike alone, or whatever the fuck he said. So yeah, that's when they should have said the end credits right there when he said it. Like I always say, they should turn to the camera, smile, and give a thumbs up, and then go to credits right there. Yeah, so I think we all enjoyed it in various ways. So Donnie, I guess we'll toss to you first. What's your star rating? Thoughts?
Oh man, yeah, this was fun. We spoke about it a bit before, this being the shortest movie we've ever done, but even still, like, it was really well done. Enjoyed it. Didn't have quite as much, I guess, gore and which we'll get to, and the kill count we'll get to, but still, it was fun. I would, if nobody's seen it, obviously we spoiled it for you, but definitely recommend you check it out. And I know I'll be checking out the second one, Never Hike in the Snow. I'll be checking that out. But yeah, I like this one. It was, liked it for all the reasons I mentioned. My star rating is about 3.25.
Will, what do you think?
I definitely agree with a lot of stuff, Donnie just said. I mean, honestly, this is probably the first fan film I've ever sat down and watched. This is probably too high of production quality to be able to judge any other fan film on. As far as the acting, like we said before, the main guy is really good. Jason does what Jason does, and I guess it's kind of hard, especially for those other actors to kind of, what I'm assuming is, come in cold and probably have 2 hours to kind of do their scenes.
Yeah, that's definitely like shot in one day kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Did not like the dream sequence. I think if you cut that entire thing out, I would hold this movie in such a higher realm than what I guess I end up going with. I'm going to do 2 3/4. It's definitely good. It's definitely worth watching. It's just that ending disappointed me.
Professor, what do you have to say about it?
Yeah, I would, for the budget, I think it did a great job. As we'd already talked about some of the shots in here, some of those cool, I mean, they're like obviously probably done with the drone, but they were cool overhead shots. I like those going into it. At one point, we already talked about this, when he's in the Jeep and he stops and he grabs his camera, he's talking into the camera. I'm like, oh shit, here it is. Like you said, yeah, this is going to be a found footage film from this point on. And at that point, I would, kind of disengage a little bit because, like you said, I don't have anything really great against found footage films other than the market was inundated with them after Blair Witch. So that pretty much soured me on it after like 1,000 different, found footage films that come out at the time. So I was glad to see that they didn't. He was just a vlogger, and they didn't go down that road too far. They managed to split the camera work between his vlogging and the steady cam / whatever as he's running through the woods. You didn't get the headache-inducing shaky cam stuff like Blair Witch. So I was happy to see that didn't go down that road. Kill scenes. I mean, they had $20,000 budget to work with, and they didn't have him and then the people at the end of the movie, so you didn't have a lot of room there for a high body count and splatter effects. I mean, there was some gore, but not, as Donny mentioned, it's not over the top or even in the realm of your typical 80s slasher movie, just because there's only him and Jason. And then at the end, I thought though at the end they maybe could have had a better chance to show some gore against, with the two ambulance people, Axel and Morgan, I think her name was, which, by the way, that's another reference. Axel was there was an ambulance driver and a nurse in Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, and his name was Axel, and he was also very much like that. I think he was looking at a Playboy as well, and very cocky, sort of humorous character or whatever. So that was a cool little nod, little Easter egg there. And then Jason's makeup, we talked about it when his mask gets knocked off. He looked pretty cool. I mean, you couldn't really determine whether he was undead Jason or not. So, I mean, I thought they did a good job of balancing out things to where it doesn't really matter whether it's continuity or following Friday the 13th canon. I think he just picked and chose what he wanted to be in there, stuff about Pamela Voorhees. He wanted Tommy Jarvis for Part 6 because he got Tom Matthews. So I think he just picked and chose what he wanted for the movies and didn't really care about continuity or whatever. So, and I was fine with that. The ending, though, again, it was, as you said, it was once Axel and Morgan, come into it, not the greatest of actors. So that does kind of take you out of what he's built on before that. I agree with the bleak ending would have been better. I think, as Will was saying, like that, if they had just ended it pretty much on him coming up and smashing his head like a grape or a watermelon or whatever, I've been fine with that too. As it stands, I think mine will probably echo Will's. I'll go with 2 3/4 stars for me as well.
For myself, I think I'm just going to go an even 3 because I'm kind of in between all you guys, but I agree with everything you said. I think, for what this is, it's very well done. I think the dream sequences, those 2 scenes that you see there, I think they were done well. It was cool looking, but it didn't really have anything to do with anything in the end, other than just here's an excuse to throw some gore in the movie because we haven't really had any, and the way this is going to end is going to be fairly positive. I mean, obviously the 2 ambulance drivers or the 2 medics, they die, but they're not necessarily extremely gruesome deaths, and there had to be at least one because it's a Jason movie. There's got to be at least one grisly death. So, all right, well, Kyle's going to survive. So let's have our one grisly scene be a dream sequence. But, at least there's a little bit there, so I think it's, it's well done. It's well done. It is what it is. It's a fan film. So for that, I enjoyed it. It's a short fan film, so I don't know if I'd go out of my way to watch it again. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't watch it again, but I've seen it, so there's not a lot of replay here, So, but I think I enjoyed it for what it was. So I think a solid 3 on my scale is warranted. So Donnie, I guess we'll throw to you first.
Connections from the crypt.
I'm so sorry, man. The Crypt Keeper. I'm sorry. The dogs are not a fan of the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
they just looked up from because I just fed them. Yeah. Anyway, they just looked up like, what the fuck? Anyway.
Well, I would too if I'd never heard the Crypt Keeper before, and then you hear that fucking cackle.
Yeah, I don't think they have.
Yeah. Probably not.
They have. But, what are we doing? Oh yeah, Crypt Keepers. Right.
What's this movie again?
Yeah. No, so we got the same number of connections basically across the board. There's 3 different connections. You've got Sean S. Cunningham, Victor Miller for Friday the 13th, the original, and then you also got Tom Matthews for Return of the Living Dead, like you mentioned earlier. So yeah, those are the only 3, crew connections. There were no cast connections at all.
All right, so Will, I guess we'll throw it to you for
Kill. Count.
The music is very appropriate.
All right, we got 19 from that one scene plus the 7 from the closing. So carry the 1.
Yeah,
2.
2. Yeah.
Total of 2.
I think that sounds about right, considering it was a cast of 5, and yeah, that was it. And I think it is funny though that the 2 that died were not like grisly at all, and then they neither of them happened.
Off camera.
Yeah, and neither of them happened on camera. Like one, you never even saw what the fuck happened to her, right? You just know she's dead.
Yeah.
And
she
then
got pulled out and then just laid down on
yeah,
the
you
ground.
hear some noises, but you don't see it. And then he just comes across like holding his throat with blood, like, and then falls over. So now, yeah, the 2 people that die is not, horrible considering. But anyways, that naturally leads us to you, Smoke.
Gore score.
Well, with that body count, it pretty much determines what the gore score is going to be. Since the body count was like, and actually technically that body count was 2, but those 2 were basically off screen and not that gory anyways. The goriest part in it was the dream sequence, I think, when he smashes his head.
Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah, that was the goriest scene. And then there was, besides that, there was the stabbing when he got stabbed with a machete and then he chopped Jason's neck at the same time. Minor gore, but I can think of one. I don't know if you were going to mention it or not, but I can think of one that was kind of gave you a little bit of a was when he's sewing his own wound up. Yeah. That one of those kind of like that makes you wince or whatever. Yeah, definitely. Anytime you see somebody sewing up their skin like Rambo and First Blood.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. It's been used plenty of movies, and every time you see it, you're like, ow.
But yeah, every time it doesn't matter. It's like even if you were just watching somebody get a paper cut, you're like, oh fuck, I feel that. You can show that in every movie, and you're always going to be like, ugh.
Next scene in a Terrifier movie is How the Clown taking a piece of paper and just cutting somebody up.
Yeah, he's just holding people's fingers open like in the Spock, live long and prosper thing, and just paper cuts in between. Ah, fuck.
By the way, I said Al. It's Art, right?
Art the Clown. Yeah. What'd you say, Hal?
Yeah.
Oh, Hal the Clown. How did you already get the script for Terrifier 2?
Electric Boogaloo.
But also there was there was near the beginning or closer in there was there was the barbed wire. That's the only other gore I can think of, and that wasn't that gory. When he tore his leg on the barbed wire fence.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he had to sew up though.
Yeah, that was the only other thing I could think of.
Well, and the corpse.
Yeah, very brief.
Like this doesn't count into the gore score, but I just thought about this too. As was that bed? Was that supposed to be Jason's bed? Like, did he sleep? You know what I mean? Like,
I guess if you maybe they're still operating on some kind of premise that this is a dude that still lives out in the woods, and they just came to fuck with him, kind of thing. You know, like in the first couple movies.
Yeah. See, I mean, in part two, that's why I think he was just. I mean, I know I've gone off on a tangent without the gore score thing, but I mean, and that's why I think he's picking and choosing, kind of cherry picking his favorite types of pieces from the different movies. Like part two, whatever his house, his shack was out in the woods. Of course, he was still alive. Well, I mean, technically, he's been dead since he was a child, right? So I mean, whatever. But I mean, whatever. So, but
that's where you get into that weird continuity thing between the first movie and the second movie, where he jumps out of the water. And then he's a kid, and then all of a sudden in the second one he's a full-grown man that lives out in the woods and has his
in the woods in his jacket,
and he has his mom's.
And he lives until when he technically, I guess, gets killed for the second time. Don't count as drowning.
It's all cuckoo cachoo, yeah.
So is the whole Jason? Is the whole Jason series just a really old man telling everybody to get off his lawn?
Yeah, it's really the story of Crazy Ralph. Let's get to the meat of the bone here.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Smoke.
That's what this movie was lacking. It did not have a Ralph character in it, as most other Friday the 13th have had. If they didn't have Ralph, like was in the first and the second one, I believe, right?
Yeah. The first two. Yeah, first two.
They had somebody saying, "Don't go up there. Don't go out there."
Death curse. Yeah. Well, there was always some asshat. Yeah. I don't know why you'd go up there.
Well, they saved money. They made a sign.
Yeah, no trespassing.
By the way, that was the most pleasant no trespassing sign I think I've ever seen in my life.
They were trying to be nice.
Yeah.
And also, when they came across the sign too, when they came across the Camp Crystal Lake sign, I'm like, that doesn't look like Camp Crystal Lake sign. And then they have the actual Camp Crystal Lake sign hanging above the.
That one looks like it was made out of popsicle sticks.
The macaroni that kids do.
Just macaroni art.
Yeah, I was disappointed when that first time popped up. I'm like, what is that Camp Crystal Lake sign?
Yeah.
Bullshit. It's supposed to be the yellow sign with the, And
this whole movie that they've made with their own money and made no money off of it is horse shit.
No, I know. I sound like I'm like talking good about it and all that stuff, and I mean, but overall, our ratings speak for themselves.
Yeah.
3/4 and 3s and 3 1/4. So
yeah. By the way, since you mentioned that, the consensus score there was 2.94. So you can level up and say we gave it 3 stars overall.
But I guess eventually I'll get to the gore score.
Yeah. So there you go. What's the gore score for it, Smoke?
I think I'm going to go with a 4, and it's because it's mainly because of that head squishing scene in the sewing up skin scene. The other ones were sort of incidental little flesh wounds that he got along the way.
Yeah.
And the fact there's only 2 people really, it's 2 body count and one the head smashing was a dream sequence. So. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go with a 4 only just because of the lack of. If there had been more of people for him to kill, I'm sure it would have gotten a higher gore score. But again, we're talking about $20,000 budget. You could tell that that budget was well spent already on what was in the movie. If he'd done a bunch of splatter effects, it would have been considerably more.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we gave our ratings. We all enjoyed it. We gave it a 3. But I will make the one last point. It is weird that there's not more gore than there is here. Maybe that's just because of the budget constraints. Maybe it's as simple as that. But it seems like if you're going to do this, and there's no rules, there's no ratings, you know what I mean? Like, you can just fucking go to town. You can just do whatever you want to do because it's for fun. It seems like you'd go a little crazier than they did. But
it's like you would sink some of that 20,000 or more of that 20,000 into gore.
Yeah.
Good splatter.
And maybe maybe once again, that's the answer. They put it into quality because the quality of it it's well done. So maybe that's where the money and the time is spent, as opposed to let's just make this shit bloody. Instead of buckets of blood, they spent it on, quality editing and camera. So, yeah, but, I think, like I said, our ratings speak for themselves. It is what it is. We enjoyed it. And, hey, maybe this is the first of many fan films that we get around to. Here on the Spook Show. I mean, this leaves a good taste in my mouth, enough to go check out the other ones that they've done here, and maybe some other fan films. So maybe that's something that we can do off and on every once in a while, is get one of these in. So really, I guess that'll pretty much put a bow on Never Hike Alone. Now, next week, oh boy, next week we return to Cannon Fodder, our Cannon film series, and we're going to be talking about one of Donnie's favorite movies of all time, Hot Chili, from 1985. Oh, I can't wait for this. This is going to be a blast, but not because we actually had to watch it. It's just going to be a blast because we get to talk about it. So now I'll read the synopsis over on IMDb because this tells you all you need to know. A group of American teenage boys go south of the border to work for the summer at a Mexican resort. There they encounter many wacky guests and have zany adventures involving a German dominatrix, a music teacher that gets hot when giving lessons, a buxom cook, and an uptight socialite. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. There's even more to read here. For some reason, they put a really long one on IMDb, but I'm going to stop there because it's giving too much of the deep plot away. But you get the point. Now, we are. This is part of Camp Spook Show, but I'm going to add before we check out here. We could not find, and we even talked to Austin Trunick, author of the Canon Film Guide, Volume 1 and 2. He couldn't think of a summer camp themed movie that Canon had done. We had Hot Chili and another movie called Hot Resort, which to me basically looked like the same damn movie. These were the closest we could get to a summer camp film for Cannon Fodder, so that's why we kind of landed on Hot Chili, and that's why we're doing it. So yeah, I know we're kind of breaking our own rule here for Camp Spook Show, but this is the closest we could find. So believe me, we tried, but this is the best we could do. So I guess if this is the best we can do, this is what we're all stuck with. So next week, Hot Chili will be served here on the Spook Show. So yeah, thanks for listening this week. Everyone enjoy Independence Day here in the United States, and come back next week for Cannon Fodder.
It's now 9:30, and that's lights out time. 9:30, as you know. Tomorrow is Parents' Day, and you must look rested or Morty will be sent to the state penitentiary.